Cool. Thanks, Jesse. Hi, everyone. I'm Justina. I'm really excited to be here with this awesome panel, especially since we've been learning throughout the day about how people acquire users, how people think about designing bots, and now we're talking to the brands who've actually been through the struggle and are still developing ways to engage users through conversational products. So let's get to know our panelists, if we could do introductions and something a little bit about the company you work at and how you work in this space. Anyone go.
Jason Herndon with Rain. We're a digital consultancy, so focus primarily in the voice space, and we've built skills for like Campbell's Kitchen, Thai that was mentioned earlier, a lot of entertainment, Dunkirk, Spider-Man, Sesame Street, Scooby-Doo, those are fun ones. We've also done a lot of work in the healthcare, hospitality, finance space, so a lot of our focus is voice, but also not just building the skill or building the action, but also all of the strategy work and the kind of the onboarding with brands to get it kind of embedded into the ecosystem of their company.
Hi, everyone. Super nice to be here. My name is Akshaya Murali. I work with Expedia. I lead product for audience growth at Expedia. So we look at new emergent platforms, looking to build product for our users in conversational spaces. We build product both for messaging ecosystems as well as voice. So we've forayed a little bit into these spaces. Excited to be here.
Hey, Mark Mezrich. I lead emerging products for Viacom's entertainment brands. That's brands such as MTV, Comedy Central, BET, and a host of others. So within emerging products, we really honed in on voice as something where we're really interested in investing and have seen a bit of traction. So we've launched a few things like The Daily Show on both Alexa and Google Assistant. And actually just today, by coincidence, launched Comedy Central as a skill on Alexa as well. So when you're out of here, ask Alexa, ask Comedy Central for stand-up, and you'll get some fun stuff out of that.
Congratulations. That's really exciting.
Thank you,
yeah. So everyone wants to know exactly, because conversational products are so new, how do you get stakeholders at your company to buy in, to really focus and hone in on building a conversational product? And if you could talk about how you bring in different organizations, how product managers versus the engineering team work all together or apart to build conversational products for your brands.
Yeah, so I would say definitely we focus on kind of two different ways to tackle that problem. The first is education. We really just focus on showing stats. We focus on helping them see. We talk in terms of first web, then mobile, then voice, and show graphs of the hockey puck of adoption rates and things like that. So we focus a lot on education, both for their sake and also as they circulate and socialize the projects within their own companies. And then the other thing that we do as well is we focus on kind of a crawl, walk, run approach and really build a small hypothesis, test and learn along the way so that they have actionable, measurable things to be able to circulate again within the company. At the end of the day, voice is something that we can kind of like sympathize with the, it's a new platform, is it going to take? But the data is just, we can't go there. We definitely agree that it's going to be ubiquitous. And we've also seen, I think that's kind of answering kind of how the product and stakeholders within the company drive adoption. We've definitely seen on the developer or the product leads trying to kind of speak in their language. So working with the retail space, that the developers, there's definitely buy-in from the executive team, but the developers are kind of like, well, this is kind of a new thing. Is it as sticky as something like web or mobile? And it wasn't until they saw like Alexa in the car that it was like, oh, okay, people are going to be like ordering food in the car on the go. I get it now. And so then that just kind of drives adoption within the teams.
Yeah, one of the ways that, sorry, I have a bad throat. One of the ways that we kind of look at it is, of course, the market data is just obvious, right? Just in the past 6 months, if you look at the data, 1 in 6 people just have voice devices in their houses, and that's huge. But in addition to that, one of the approaches that we've taken is when you just really design products and think about products voice first, you're actually building a capability to solve all of your platforms and products. And I think that just simplifies how you can make your existing products a lot more usable, solve user problems in those spaces and things like that. So just that, looking at the future potential as well as the short-term gains that you can get is actually huge. And completely to your mentality, it's such a build, measure, learn approach. We like the approach of just being flexible and changing as per what the market needs are or what the user needs are, which I think is critical.
Yeah, for us, it's pretty similar to what you both just said. I think for our media brand or a set of media brands, playing around with the shiny new object is always going to be really exciting. It's how do you get from an experiment to really dedicating a whole bunch of resources towards it. When it comes to that, traction breeds runway. So if you can show a success early on, and we sort of think about this from a product roadmap perspective, convince the organization, like you were saying, hey, these things are working. There's something we can really do here to bring our content to more people. So we should be investing in. That's sort of the approach we took. And thankfully for us, Daily Show did pretty well. So that's meant we've been able to invest. To your point about the product orgs and the engineering orgs, one thing that we found important in general for emerging product is we want to keep our roadmaps as separate as possible and our teams sort of as separate as possible, even though these things are starting to become more mainstream. Because when you start sort of merge roadmaps with things that are long-term ROI, things that are short-term ROI, as these platforms are right now, you end up getting deprioritized a lot of times for the new emergency thing or the thing that's really going to make us the most money in the near term. So if you want to keep resources dedicated to the thing that's the investment area, it usually proves kind of fruitful to sort of say this is our dedicated resources to the thing that's emerging. You can't touch these. This is future facing.
To your point about keeping the roadmap separate, do you ever think about tying in conversational products with existing products that you have for your brand? And if so, do you use that in terms of marketing tactics or anything like that?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. I think our entire approach to building product in conversational spaces is just focus on the user problem, right? And especially when you think about travel as a brand, multiple panels brought this up. I think it's the best channel we currently have to build trust with your users. So if you really take it in a travel context, when users are stuck with either their flights got canceled or you're at home and your flight's getting delayed, but just sort of giving those kind of tidbits of useful pieces of information, I think can be really powerful. So, but they do have to work with your existing systems in some way, right? That's how you build that intelligence. So that's how we leverage it. We use the intelligence from other products, use users, profiles and home airport locations, things like that they've set up as part of their profile to give them really actionable, usable information. So that's how we tie it together. In terms of roadmaps, I agree with you. We kind of keep it separate just so we can get the traction to build really fast, iterate really fast, and then change the product as per what the need is.
Yeah, but definitely thinking in systems is important. The example that we always like to give is kind of Pizza Hut versus Domino's. No duh, you use both of those skills on the platforms and you get pizza back. That kind of makes sense. With Pizza Hut, it's more of a, I order the pizza, okay, and then the pizza comes. With Domino's, I order the pizza, and then it's delivered to my mobile app, it's texting me, it's letting me know that it's on the way. So it's integrated into their systems as an ecosystem, and you can just tell that that brand has thought through kind of voice first and integrated it into its system versus kind of orphaning it. And we're really trying to kind of leverage the learnings from mobile and not just build systems that get orphaned, but kind of bring them into the rest of the product wheelhouse.
Really great distinction and example. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so to your point about integrating voice into other products, that's where sort of the difference between a conversational interface and voice as a remote or as a sort of one-way UI gets really interesting. We think a lot about, we're very interested in video. You serve a lot of video, so how can voice, and you're already seeing this with various ways with Alexa and Google Assistant and other platforms, how can voice sort of be the remote for playing video, right? And that's not a huge conversation. That's saying, okay, Google play Stranger Things on Netflix, and that happens, right? You're not really having a whole conversation. You're using it to cut down the time to get to your content. So I think there's a lot of things like that we're interested in terms of voice just being the input, and we're okay with that. It might lead to other conversations, but if you just want to use it as a way to get something and get out, we're really okay with that too, and there's a lot of coordination that has to happen to work on things like that between the different products.
Totally. Something that Akshaya had mentioned earlier is focusing on the user and their experience. As huge brands, how do you ensure product integrity and voice consistency? Because when brands speak to your conversational products, they already have expectations about, what Expedia should sound like, what Viacom and its brands should sound like, or Tide should sound like. How do you ensure that as you're designing these interfaces?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Expedia is actually really unique in this. I think our entire vision is to just help people go places, right? So when you put that in the forefront, our entire tone and voice is around how do we give the most clear, concise information for people to make the decision that they need to. So it's different in different contexts. I think that's what's critical. Certain use cases that are where our customers need support on the go, like we don't want to drill down in the conversation and give just beat around the bush. But in other cases, when they're trying to discover destinations to go on a family vacation, you want it to be exciting, you have a personality, talk to what the preferences are. So, that's how we try to bring our personality and tone, is to just really build that trust, keep it clear and concise, and just give them the information that they need to make that decision.
Yeah, certainly, all those the conversations about kind of like maintaining brand and tone are important. From a more like kind of a tactical kind of perspective on how we've done that, a lot of what we've done is just making sure that we weave in a lot of people who are not technologists. I mean, in general, everybody at our company is kind of technology centric, but weaving people in who are kind of creative and who dream, big about, and then Alexa does this, and it's like, well, it's not really possible, but we kind of scale them back and move down, and so that helps kind of there be like cleverness or stickiness or kind of a brand tone and personality in the space where you can.
Yeah, we totally do the same thing, and it's brought a lot of really cool things to the fore. Like when we actually did this Comedy Central skill, we were working a lot with the brand sort of creative teams and the comedy teams there, the stand-up comedy teams, and they recommended, hey, can we replace Alexa's voice with we have a comedian who's the voice of Comedy Central. When you turn on the TV and they're doing the program guide or anything, making announcements, this comedian Kyle Kinane who does these voices. So we had him come in and do voiceover sessions and replace Alexa's voice wherever we technically were able to do that, and it made and Amazon was really, really supportive of that. So it made the whole skill really feel like something that was truly and uniquely Comedy Central. And Kyle got really into it too, and he had his own set of suggestions, and again, outside the realm of he's not a vui designer, obviously, but it was great to hear, a comedian's perspective of that, great to hear the brand's perspective on that. So for anything we do, again, working across different parts of the organization, it's really important all our brands have a voice and make sure that voice, shines through. So whether that's literally the voice of the interaction that you're having, replacing Alexa's voice, or that's making sure that the way the skill functions is in keeping with the brand. And another way that comes up just for me in terms of sitting sort of centrally, we do a few things that we think, oh, this could work really well for MTV and it could work well for BET, but we don't want to just slap a brand on top of it and do a white labeled thing. So we have to really think through what are the brand differences beyond content there.
That's really awesome to hear that Amazon was so supportive of that. And then I wanted to actually dig a little deeper into what you said, Jason. Who specifically do you bring in to help with that creative process? A lot of people actually ask us, who should we hire? What kind of team should we be building out to build out this conversational product? So can you get more specific on that?
Yeah, that's definitely been.
If Mark and Akshaya have anything to add to that, that'd be great too.
Yeah, that's been top of mind for us. I think we've approached it from a couple ways. One is our kind of just our creative team in general, as people who are really good at kind of thinking outside the box, and without blending their creative voice into the specific interface that they're in. And then the other way is that we've repurposed a lot of our UX team to just be voice experience designers. As well, and we find that the combination between those two kind of really early on, once we get aligned on what the strategy and this kind of the specific space that we want to operate in for an interaction, allowing those two people to kind of back and forth at it is really helpful.
Yeah, to add to that, I think the gold is in user research. Like if you just are talking to your users and you're just trying to understand what are those problems that they're trying to solve with these natural conversational interfaces, that's been the biggest success for us. And then blending that into our product process, which is either UX or what kind of roadmap we want to build or what types of problems do we want to prioritize. I think we just get a lot of insight into that, and you're like, oh, duh, I never thought that that's what users wanted. It's actually pretty evident. So it's easy to build when you have so much of user data. That's what's awesome.
Okay. So something that I always love asking, because I work at an analytics company, is how do you define your success criteria when designing for voice or chat?
Sorry. Fundamentally, it's not so different than anything. I think we all have, everyone here experienced either building apps or websites or anything. I don't find it fundamentally. I don't find it fundamentally different than anything else, right? You just want to look at, and it's going to be a little bit specific to the app or the skill that you're doing, but are people using it? Are people engaged with it? So if the goal is, if it's more conversational, then time spent is going to be important, right? Because you want to make sure they're having those conversations, or the number of conversations that you're having are important. But overall, if the number of users continues to be important, and those sort of core engagement metrics continue to be important, I don't think there's anything particularly unique about the platform that leads to something else. It's really can be skill or product specific.
Yeah, I completely agree. It also completely depends on the use cases or the the functionality of your skill or the capabilities of your product. In terms of engagement, active usage, all of those are really critical. But when I think about customer service use cases that we support on our platforms, like I want to help the user get the job done fast. So I'm not going to be looking at session time or engagement rates or things like that. Then we start bringing in retention metrics, looking at lifetime values and things like that. But he's absolutely right. It's pretty much what any product that you build and what the core capabilities are.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd kind of like add as a nuance onto that, I think definitely for sure all the conversations about like benchmarking it against current and channels and things like that, and retention and engagement, all that kind of stuff. Already mentioned the Tide score earlier that we built, and I think one of the things that if you just look at like if you were to compare that to a mobile experience, no duh, with Tide, you're gonna, look for staying authority and what can I get out with my, what kind of stains can I get out? If you think about that on a mobile experience, maybe there's a list, right? Maybe there's some kind of like, you're selecting it. In a voice experience, you're actually telling I want to get, wine stains out of my carpet or blood stains out of my shoe. Don't worry about that. But what that does is that allows for new data, right? So that was a good example of something that Tide learned, was that people were asking for stain removal from shoes. Tide doesn't have any products for that. So that's something that you couldn't have done on a web or a mobile interface specifically, is you kind of get that feedback. And it's been like a good focus group and a good way to kind of drive questions about should they have a product for shoes, because obviously users think about them in that way.
Cool. So we've actually heard a lot today about how to go about designing a conversation flow, whether that's with conversation trees or whatever that may be. Do you guys have best practices or best tips that you've seen that have worked really well for big brands? Especially in terms of, I guess, if we could start at the very beginning, how do you come up with the concept of what your conversational product is going to do? Is it going to solve that one problem, and how did you pick that one problem for it to solve?
Yeah, so in terms of the landing on the strategic territory, I think we approach that from a kind of what are the business drivers that we need to solve, what are the consumer space, what are the consumer need states, and then kind of owning, okay, where is the overlap of those two in the white space that we feel like we can solve problems with in a voice interaction. And then from there, we kind of move into scripting and say, okay, we think this is a good territory to kind of own, and so then we begin to script it out, and we'll run those scripts by product people, by marketing people, to kind of, we'll play them out together as a team, just to kind of make sure that it feels right. And then once we
when you say you play them out together as a team, what do you, I was totally gonna call you out.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly? What does that look like?
Yeah, mainly just kind of voicing them out to each other, just making sure that we all read them to each other, and make sure that somebody will read one part and somebody reads the other, and yeah, just to kind of hear it spoken. Yeah. And then from there we kind of get really super nerdy on state machine diagrams and flow charts and things like that to kind of make sure that it transitions from there to development accurately. But yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, on our side, I can talk to you about a specific thing. As we were looking at expanding some of the customer service capabilities, one of the things that we try to leverage is, we have tons of call center data. People are talking to our customer service almost every single day. So we try to mine into that information and see what are the top things that we want to solve for. How do we start bubbling up that these are the use cases that are more applicable in this sort of an interface, and then put it in front of our users and confirmed and or asked unleading questions to confirm that hypothesis, and then just started testing it. And I think that helped us kind of hone into building more engaging, deep experiences than going super broad. So that's just one way we tackle it.
Jason's point about the white space is something we think about a lot. So it's early days for these platforms, right? So think back to mobile 10 years ago and the things that people owned, and it's not always the same as what people own now, but there's certainly an opportunity in front of us. So for us, we have to tie that to your earlier point of what can we own that makes sense for our brand, and that's sort of the rubric that we sort of use to go down and figure out what we're going to do from the how we actually get it done perspective. We're in a bit of a unique situation where we're actually really, fortunately, heavily loaded engineering and less so on the VUI side. So we actually just get to building a lot quicker than we probably should. But it's gotten us really good at building these things. So there's some value in that as well. So these things sort of depend on how you're organizationally set up sometimes too.
Totally, and it's good to be first in this space right now. I think at this time we're going to open up to Q&A. I think we have time for a couple of questions. If anyone has questions, I can't really see the light there.
It's going back. Hi. What other language other than English are you working in when it comes to voice?
Yeah, so we've developed skills in English mainly, but then also launched them kind of international, but English speaking in Germany and the UK. And then we're rolling out a lot of different market specific ones, like for the UK and Germany, mainly as the two that we're launching in first. We're kind of wading slowly into that as brands kind of have appetite to launch in those spaces. For us.
Yeah, Expedia is a global brand too, so we're constantly looking to, build capabilities for users across the world. So similar boat.
Same. It's a good question, because with these conversational interfaces, so much is scripted that we found it can be a lot harder to translate these things, and it might something that's a graphical interface where you have to change a few words, right? So it's definitely a unique challenge to it.
But also the most natural form of communication is language, so that's the benefit.
Sure.
Yes.
Hi. Earlier I asked a question about choice overload, and Jason, I was fascinated by something you said that also kind of came up earlier with the idea with the Tide people kind of coming up with new uses or asking about new uses. It seems like you could almost call that choice underload, where people don't actually have a thing that they're trying to solve a problem. And I'm wondering whether anybody is specifically designing apps now to uncover those kinds of new market opportunities.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I don't know that I know of anybody who's kind of doing that specifically. I know it's always a tension for us as like voice experience designers. Sometimes we feel like there's, with a browser you've got rails, you've got literally walls against the edge, and with voice there's nothing. So we feel like there's tens of thousands of options that are possible. So handling error states is kind of typically where we spend a lot of our time. But yeah, I don't know that we have encountered anybody who's kind of tackling that problem on as a kind of bespoke solution unto itself.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd like to add to that is I think the opportunity in mixed modal, like having voice, screen, all of that opens up a lot more opportunities. Like specifically, I can imagine like such a complicated decision on what's your travel destination, which involves price, weather, so many decision-making points. I feel like multimodal can simplify that decision process in some way. We're not there yet because it's such a rapidly evolving space, but I think that's where we can get some leverage and some benefits.
If you look at what's going on now with Instagram ads, right, and these sort of micro brands popping up all over your Instagram feeds, a lot of that's because it's, with Shopify and everything else, it's just so easy to put out a store, right? And it's easy to, contract with someone to build it. I think you might see that a lot in voice, because to get a a very basic skill out there is not so difficult, right? And it's a little less overhead, especially if you're using AWS. It's a little less overhead than it is to roll out a mobile app. So you might see people just experiment and try different things and see where there's traction, and that's going to sort of be the overload part of that equation.
A retailer that we work with, actually, very much to what Jason said, they learned, so originally they were only a store locator chatbot, and then they actually learned a lot of people wanted to start purchasing product from it, from reading the conversational transcripts, just like how a lot of people were asking Tide their questions about stains that you don't really think about when you think Tide. And then they expanded their chatbot from there. So I find that when you kind of focus just on one solution, you could build out your chatbot to be really intricate and actually solve problems that the users are asking about. And I think I saw one more question over in like that area maybe.
Anyone?
Hey, I'm Spencer. I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the prioritization principles you guys use to evaluate channel strategy for when to launch on Messenger versus Google Home versus Alexa versus any other platform.
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit. I think it's really about the overlap of where your users are and where the market is, right? So as long as you find those avenues to really build product for, that's been one of the prime areas for us to focus on. Always look at where your users are, where your brand is, where your market is, and that's a big lever for us. Anything to add?
It's definitely the same. We did a kind of a test launch with a hotel brand, and we launched one kind of voice assistant in room, and then one chatbot assistant in room. Both of them did really well. I think the only real takeaway was people don't want to call the front desk.
So that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And by and large, we're mostly looking at what the market penetration is, the total addressable market through a specific device. But it's worth experimenting with other platforms that are smaller because it might be the right fit for your brand or the right fit you're trying to build. So we're not closed off to other sort of more emerging platforms. But definitely, to your point earlier, looking at where Google Assistant is and where Alexa is definitely means we're putting more resources there.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time. Let's give our panel a round of applause, and they'll stick around if you want to ask them any questions. I'll hand it back to Jesse. Thank you.